One of the most common questions I get asked is about snare drum tuning. So I thought in this video I would show you my approach, a couple different approaches I have for tuning a snare drum to get it ready for a demo, which is maybe a little bit more scientific and exact than if you just want to get a drum to sound good and just play it. So I want to share a couple different methods. So I have this, this is the drum I'm going to be reviewing soon. This is a Black Swamp Dynamics Medallion Brass 5x14. Professional level, high quality drum, brass shell, kind of, I think it's kind of a middle ground for what most people might have. So what we're going to do, just going to start, right now both heads are completely slack. So I'm starting with the heads finger tight on all the tension rods, top and bottom. First thing I do is address the bottom head. So the approach I'm going to show you first is how you can tune a drum just by feel largely. So once you have the tension rods finger tight, which means, you know, just enough that I'm using this Evans drum key, which is really cool. It has this knurled thing on top. So I'm just going as far as I can go with that with just a little bit of muscle, and before it, right there, it just like stops at about as far as it can go without me really tweaking it. So all the lugs are at that point. I'm going to use 2 keys, opposite sides. I'm going to go half turn on each, so a half rotation. It's a 10 lug drum, so it's five tweaks. I'm going to do it again. Another half turn on each. Right, and I'm just going to feel it where I'm at this point. It's still got some give. Basically, for the bottom head, I tune it about as high as it can go before the head has no tone whatsoever, and then I almost never touch it from that point. It just stays there. Only time I could do a different method with the bottom head is if it's a really old drum with round bearing edges or like kind of janky bearing edges. I might have to lower the bottom head tension, but on a new contemporary professional level drum, it's always very, very tight. So that's a full rotation. We're going to do a quarter turn on each now. And that's usually a good starting point. The head has a little bit of give, but not a lot. You can kind of check the... So we'll put a drumstick under the wires like this. Mute the batter head so you're not hearing its resonance. Pretty high. I think I can go higher. Now I'm going to grab the tune bot. These things are a good reference tool. I don't generally use them as a crutch, but more as a way for me to be very consistent. So I'm just going to see what note this head is ringing at. D sharp. So I usually aim for a G. So I thought it was a little bit low, and that confirmed it's a little bit low. So we're going to do another quarter turn on each lug. So if you're keeping track, that's 1.5 full rotations. Let's see what note it's at. Getting there, almost at an F. So I'm going to guess it needs another full rotation to get it up to the G where I want it to be. So we're going to do just quarter turns at this point because they're getting a lot of tension on the head. Just want to be careful not to over tighten it. You can feel when, when the lugs have reached their max. This one still has some way to go. So we'll go ahead and just do another quarter. I'm paying attention to the feel at this point. They're starting to get pretty tight, so I know I'm probably about there. Let's check the note. Almost there. I bet another quarter turn will get us right to the G. Perfect, 392. So now the bottom head is done unless there's some kind of problem that I need to address. That's where it's going to stay, regardless of how the top head is tuned, right? So, all right, so let's flip it over. And now let's address the batter head. So again, it's finger tight, completely loose. And I'm going to do the same methods. I'm going to do 2 half turns and then a quarter turn. So that's our first half. Now, I can tell by the feel that we might actually be where I want it to be. So before I do the next quarter turn, I'm going to check the note. I'm looking for a D on the batter side. So I'm going to mute the bottom head. Yep, it's a little bit flat. So I bet that quarter turn will get us exactly where we need to be. Quarter. Yep, we went too far. So let's back it down a bit. That was like a D sharp. So I went back down like an eighth. It's just a touch sharp. That would be fine, but again, since we're going super nerdy, let's do like a teeny tiny little bit on each one. Just a little bit below. This is where I get neurotic, but it's actually where it needs to be. But for the sake of science, I'm going to shoot to get it right at the D. There it is. All right, that's where I start with any snare drum. So it's kind of like a medium high batter head, really high bottom head. There's a fourth interval between them. This tends to be a good starting point. If I'm recording, I usually detune it a bit most of the time. Playing live, this could be perfect, or maybe even a little bit higher. Let's just play it and see what it sounds like. Now the next question is, how tight should the wires be? Again, if I'm going for a starting point, I go for the point where there's no extra rattle. And also when I play really lightly, it's not choked. So I usually over tighten it to where it starts to choke and then back it off just to the point where the choking is gone, the snare is nice and crisp and it doesn't rattle. Let's get to that point. And that's it. That's my my basic starting point for snare drum tuning. So what I'll do here is I'll adjust to taste. If I want, if I'm playing something in the slower tempo and I want the snare to sound like a little bit more reverb, then I'll back off the wires and let them rattle a bit, take up more space. If I'm playing really quiet, maybe more kind of a jazz vibe, I might tighten up the snares even more so they're not sympathetically buzzing. but always below that choking point. Tuning wise, this will work. This medium high will work on almost anything unless you really want a fatter sound. So give it a shot with your drum. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next video.